Um, and Stephanie Allen should be joining us, hopefully. She's also works with the program. And then Berkeley Fire Chief David Sprague will be also joining. He's also a big advocate and a key component to this too. And so what I was hoping is that we'd be able to have a chance to learn more about it and to be able to share this with others, maybe dispel some myths that some of us may have about what CTE means. It'd be great to hear about different pathways that the CTE program opens up to kids. I think excuse me, I think a lot of parents sort of assume that your kids are going to, follow a very specific path. Usually it's probably college oriented, but there are lots of other ways of thinking about that. And I think it's been really nice to learn more about this. I had a nice long conversation with Stephanie about this, and also with Chief Sprague, and it was very enlightening and kind of relieving too, as I have a sixth grader and not too sure where he's going to go, but it's just nice to know what options are available to us. So we have about half an hour for you guys, and we'd love to hear more. And maybe with that, you can just take it away. And if you need to share anything or
I just shared our pathway map in the chat,
okay.
and Chief Sprague has a more B-step specific. David, did you want me to share that one, or? And I Susang, you shared some things in the invitation that are resources as well. So
yeah,
I don't mind starting. I definitely want to be very mindful that we do have the chief here. So I'll give an overview, and then I can always come back another time. But after I do an overview of CTE, he can do a little bit more of a focus on his specific pathway or our specific partnership with Berkeley Fire, because it's really cool and it's a great example of good CTE all overall. So what I put in the chat was a pathway link, a pathway map. Win Skills, Berkeley Unified School District CTE Program Manager. Most of my work is at Berkeley High School, but actually the last 3 years, we've been in all 3 middle schools. I heard you say you had a 6th grader. We have a 6th grade STEM wheel program at all 3 middle schools, and a makerspace in all 3 middle schools. And that was really designed to help students do a lot of exploration early, especially around STEM or STEAM. And really getting 6th graders to think about, STEM and STEAM in a very fun, playful way. Career technical education, CTE, career technical education. For some of us who are my generation, it would have been called vocational education, and it was seen as a very different track from the college track. So it was like a tiered system. Berkeley Unified had a really robust vocational track back in the day. It did become synonymous with tracking. And racially tracked. And during that 1990s movement of not only are we fighting tracking, good thing, we're also going all college prep for everybody. We're only thinking about that, not a great thing. We threw all the vocational education programs out, or almost all of them out. In the last, call it 10 years, Berkeley Unified has been engaged in the same thing the state's been engaged in, which is really rebuilding this as college and career pathways. Career technical education, but it's all college prep as well. And there are substantial state monies. We go after all the money that's available from the state. Some of it's very secure through CDE, the CTIG grant program. As secure as our budgets hold in the state, we all know how that is, but we're in year 7 or 8 of that grant program. Some of it comes through the community college chancellor's office, but it's all really for college and career exploration, K through high school, mostly high school. So middle school, 6th grade wheel, and some STEM electives, most notably at Willard. Willard's been our laboratory. So we started the wheel at Willard. Then we've done the 7th and 8th grade electives, and then advanced STEM at Willard. We have the Growing Leaders program at Willard. So those are all CTE-ified. And taking what we've learned at Willard, we've expanded to King and Longfellow. We have some of those things, some elements of both of those. King's a little different in the cooking and gardening space because they have edible schoolyard, which is not BUSD CTE, that is the edible schoolyard. At the high school, we have 6 of 15 California industry sectors. So the state of California has tried to organize every career path into sectors, and there are 15 of them. we have 6 represented. Many of them are very, very vast and broad. So with Chief Sprague here, his is the public service sector. That's less vast and broad. It tends up being law enforcement side or emergency services, emergency response side. But some of them, like arts, media, and entertainment, have multiple sub pathways and then even sub pathways. So we represent 6 industry sectors. At Berkeley High, we have about 12 pathways. Every single class, I don't want to get too in the weeds with jargon, but every single class is UC Office of the President approved as college prep. If you have a high school student, you've heard of A through G. All of them fill A through G requirements, most of them electives, but some of them actually fill math requirements like computer science, science requirements like another computer science class or a mechatronics class. Some of them fill F, which is art requirements, but all of them are college prep, meaning a student doesn't have to make a choice. I want to take a film studio editing class, or I want to take an AP class for college. They're all college prep. Every program at Berkeley High School has CTE. The 3 small schools, if you're very familiar with Berkeley High, all have a CTE pathway built in. That's CAS, AHA, and AMPS. They get extra state funding, not even my CTE funding, for their CTE focus. And then the big learning communities at Berkeley High School, which are International Baccalaureate Program, BIHS, and Academic Choice, all have a wide array of CTE. International Baccalaureate Program actually has only 2 pathways built into their program, but those students can take other CTE classes outside of the school day. Again, college and careers, all of our programs will require some post-secondary education. It might be community college. If it's our EMTs, they're going to go get their medic licensing. If it's carpentry, post-secondary apprenticeship program with agreement we have with the Carpenters Union and the Carpenters Training Center. If it's robotics, many of those kids are all wanting to go into engineering or going into advanced manufacturing or machining. So we really have quite a robust career technical education program. Again, it's all college prep, but we're de-emphasizing. It's not only about college, it's about exploring what you like to do, who you might be in the future, looking at a range of jobs and careers. Every single class is different in that they're all experiential, meaning you're learning by doing. They're all technical, thus the name Career Technical Education. And wherever possible, we give students access to industry standard equipment. So if you're in any of our digital media pathways, you have access to Adobe Creative Cloud. If you're in robotics, you're working on SolidWorks and other design software. If you're in digital sound engineering, you're working with Pro Tools. So our students have access to the top equipment, and then experiential is not just in the classroom, it's learning from the community, learning in internship, learning from community partners, learning through dual enrollment. We have a really robust dual enrollment program with Berkeley City College, about 250 students per year, and that mostly falls under CTE as well. So that's an overview. And maybe before we take questions, as an example of a pathway, if this is appropriate, maybe Chief Sprague would talk a little bit about, let's just drill into one pathway, which is our B-step, emergency response. Does that sound okay?
Thanks, Wynn. Before I dive in, I didn't hear you say it. How many Berkeley High kids are in one or more CTE pathways?
Yeah, there are 2,000 students at Berkeley High School enrolled in a CTE class. So I'm demystifying, it's not some niche thing. And we have 2,750 enrollments, that's counting our middle school. The 6th graders wheel through. So almost every 6th grader is in the wheel. And there's some in the electives, but at Berkeley High School alone, 2,000 students. When you get into the junior year, 66% of juniors at Berkeley High School are in a CTE class. We have X number of students that are actually in more than one, and some that are in more than 2 CTE classes.
I just think that's a powerful stat because, these programs are wildly popular with kids. And that's because they actually allow kids to apply math, reading, and other, serious skills to something that's tangible. So it's just when you contextualize learning, what we've seen is that people's minds just open up, and when they find a purpose and a value for what they're learning, it just is exponential. Whether they pursue the career in the end, it can really be a life changer for who they are. So I got a couple slides just to kind of guide us through. And do you see my screen? Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay, so the public safety training pathway that serves fire and emergency medical services is called BSTEP. Who am I? I graduated Berkeley High in 1998. And when I was at Berkeley High, when I was at Willard, I literally remember like looking through the chain doors of the wood shop. All the machines were still in there, but it was closed. And I, being in school at Berkeley High, I had a couple like really great teachers, but I never really found a spark. I ended up graduating Berkeley High and going on to community college. And that was the result of a pretty significant fallout with my father, who really wanted me to go to an Ivy League 4-year school. And I wasn't ready. It wasn't the right time for me. So I went to a community college and got started my education to become a firefighter paramedic. Came back and quickly got a job, and since then kind of have progressed through the ranks of the fire department. I've been there 22 years. Never thought I would be chief, never wanted to. It wasn't in the cards, but here I am. And in the process of working for the department, I've gone back to school. I've gotten my bachelor's degree and a variety of other specific education related to my field. So for me, that was a great sequence of education and employment, and then more education. And by the time I went back to school, I was much more interested in what I was doing. There was more of a purpose for me. So worked really well for me. And I can tell you the fire service. So why is CTE critical for the Berkeley Fire Department, and really for most of the professions that Wynn has mentioned? Because, especially for police, fire, emergency medical services, we're community-based organizations. We serve the community, and it's really important that our membership reflect the community, both in terms of how we look, our values. And we have in the Berkeley Fire Department less than 10 people that are from Berkeley or live in the city. And that is because all of the CTE, or traditionally known vocational education, vanished from urban school districts decades ago, but it's alive and well in many of our kind of outlying communities. So the majority of our employees are born and raised, and commute back to places like Santa Rosa, or out into the east, into the valley. So one of my goals has been, since I got hired, to reestablish a pathway from the community to provide young folks in this town great opportunities for a really interesting, rewarding, challenging career. And it's really important that the department prioritize this. We struggle to recruit diversity, and can tell you the classes that we have at Berkeley High every year are super diverse in every sense of the word. They represent Berkeley, and that's what I'm hoping our applicant pool will start reflecting. It's taken us 15 years to get to where we are. We've literally wrapped the department around the CTE pathway through creating new programs, internship opportunities, and establishing several new entry-level classifications. So for the first time, I just went to Family Day, which is the day before a new paramedic academy starts. Paramedic is the entry-level classification that we've recently created. And we've got 4 BSTEP graduates in our paramedic class for the first time. So super, super excited about that.
Yep.
For CTE to work, it takes a number of people, but primarily 3 groups: educators, labor, and employers, right? All 3 players are at the table. They have been for this pathway and every other pathway. There's a lot of people that have invested time in making sure this pathway makes sense and that kids and parents are supported if there's a spark. So I won't go into this in much detail, but essentially what this is the pathway map that we've created. And B-Step is down here at the bottom. And we've created these layers so you can start now with a variety of different paid intern programs, work experience programs. And then there's a number of different pathways you can advance into in a department or the city, really. If folks are interested in fire EMS, that's great. That's the traditional pathway, but we have a number of other really interesting careers in the fire department and elsewhere in the city. So my goal is if somebody is interested in any of these opportunities, that we expose them to that. They can do a sit along, ride along, see what it's about, and get them a job in the city. The city also has that challenge, is we need more people from the community working in the city that reflect our values and don't turn off when they leave the office. Just to kind of show some dollars and cents here. These are the top step salaries for kind of like the core positions that are in the fire department, the value of the benefits, and the total compensation package. And I just throw this up here because the City of Berkeley app offers really amazing benefits that you can't find in most private employers. And I think that's not really that important to someone in their 20s, but all of us parents can understand the value of this stuff. City has an amazing medical plan, basically zero copays through Kaiser, really nice sick leave and vacation package, and of course, a defined benefit pension, which we lobbied hard to have our 2 entry-level classifications of EMT and paramedic in CalPERS in the safety plan. So people start working towards a defined benefit through CalPERS in their first year of employment with us. Super rare in the fire service to have that benefit. So just think that's important to highlight. And I think I'll cut it off there. I'll end with, we've been doing this for since 2014. The program's super popular with kids, and I am now a parent of 2 kids at BAM, and I really believe in this type of education. I've seen so many kids who are doing fine in school or are struggling, it doesn't matter, but they find something like this and it just really ignites them and their whole personality changes. They become even more committed or committed at school, and it's just a really cool thing to see. So I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I didn't go into a lot of detail of what the kids do, but really a cool program. I'm happy to come talk to any group of parents about this in more detail, as I'm sure my colleagues are, Wynn and Stephanie. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks for the time tonight.
Vicky, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple general questions and comments. I like how we started this off, how there's maybe some misunderstandings about what this actually is and who it represents. And maybe it's sort of a messaging thing, because I think these are amazing programs. But what I'm hearing right now, when you're thinking about the idea of a pathway, like particularly with your example, it's not necessarily a pathway through Berkeley High School. It's a pathway to the career. Most of the stuff in this pathway is after you've graduated. Like the first step is like what you're doing at Berkeley High School, but then there's like the various paths you can take. And I guess as a parent of a 10th grader, I'm still unclear of what the difference is between a CTE class that is just a class that's an elective versus being in a pathway, and what that means. And then if at some point students choose a pathway, does someone help them go through that pathway? What happens at the end of that pathway, separate from just a class that they're taking that's part of this program?
I see Stephanie's hands up. I'm happy to take it. Or Stephanie, did you want to say something?
Well, let me say something and then you fill it out.
Those were all, by the way, excellent questions, Vicky.
Yes. Frequently, students will take a class because one of their friends said this is a great class to take. And then what happens is they get interested in whatever the subject matter is. And then most of the CTE classes are 2 years, 11th and 12th grade. Following that, the state funds us on the basis that people then go on either to a community college or an apprenticeship, something of that sort. And many students take the class, enjoy it, but decide they're going somewhere else. We don't care, because what we want is to engage them into looking at their career options, thinking about what they're going to do when they graduate, because those of you who are parents of teenagers know that they can't find their elbow with a flashlight and they have no idea what's going on. And in 1 or 2 years, they're going to be in the adult world and they have to start thinking and making decisions and so forth. We don't think that most kids are prepared to make a decision about a lifetime career at age 18. Some are. David was, right? We've had kids in our EMT class who have decided they want to become nurses or physician's assistants or go on into the fire service. But generally, what happens is you take a class, you can get interested in the pathway and follow it. Or you take the class and you learn a lot and it makes you think about where you're going with your life. We think both things are fine, and that's what CTE is about. I'm done, Win.
Yeah, that's a great answer. It's early exploration. The state really wants kids to be in a pathway and be quote unquote completers, meaning at the very minimum, having completed 2 classes in a sequence. And our funding is largely driven by that, reporting how many completers we have. The Berkeley way is much more about exploration, right? So a junior takes, say a sophomore takes intermediate robotics class. They realize robotics is not, they like it, but maybe they like the coding part better. So they move to computer science. They've now moved to a different pathway. We allow that. That's 100% fine. The state doesn't love that, but for us at sophomore year, we'd rather you explore than be siloed into a pathway. Either way, wherever you are, you're getting experiential learning. You ideally have an internship or some other way that you're connecting with industry standard practices and technology, and that you're exploring some of the careers in the Bay Area. I'll use, because Chief Sprague is here, EMT as an example. He did say it, 3 of our pathway completers are all starting with the department. But our EMT teacher, that was the class at Berkeley High School, EMT. He was in fire science EMT. And then he got in fire science junior year. This is it. This is what I want to do. I don't care about other things in high school. He didn't before. This was the why of going through high school. Went on to be an EMT the minute he graduated from high school, as many of them can and do. And then 4 or 5 years later, full medic, CTE credentialed, teaching our class, bringing in industry relevant experience every day, literally coming off ambulances to teach our class, as do many of our other alum, and then getting his medic, and now, of course, employment in Berkeley Fire. So that's the dream. But in reality, we want lots of kids to just explore and see what's out there. We live in a very, very, very interesting employment environment, and there are many, 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 many jobs, and kids really don't know what those are until they start exploring them. Vicky, I hope that we answered some of your questions.
Yes, but I'm going to ask a follow-up, because the example with Chief Sprague is a very clear one. Like, to me, that makes sense. Like, I understand, like, the EMT pathway. I guess it's some of the other ones that are a little bit more murky. So my follow-up question is, what kinds of supports do you guys have at Berkeley High when the students are making these decisions? So for example, I have a 10th grader, like I don't think she gets her art class as part of a CTE and would know how to choose what class she would have as a junior or what the sequence would be, to do that pathway, and then who is actually tracking whether or not they've done that sequence, and then what happens at the end of that. I guess, what is the support for the students to make these decisions is my question. Like, I see the opportunities, which is awesome, but how are the students being mentored through this process, I guess?
Given that she's a sophomore and she's in art, am I guessing AHA correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. So AHA is those students, AHA students, AHA is Academy of Arts and Humanities. Many of the students chose AHA not because of they love the arts, but they didn't choose it because it's CTE. They chose it because they love the arts and they wanted a small, very supportive community. But in effect, all of them will complete a 3-year CTE pathway, sophomore, junior, all the way to AP Studio Art. All with one teacher, Ms. Stahl, so those 3 years. In doing that, they're really spiraling up through so many cool ways of exploring art, not only as a career, but in creativity, working in the shop, working in all kinds of media. So in the small schools, they're completing a CTE pathway without ever really knowing when they chose it, that's what they were doing. They chose, some of them might choose the pathway only because it has such an emphasis on art. That's great. The CTE for a high school student is sort of like, okay, that's nice. But other pathways are much more intentionally CTE, meaning that student gets information in 9th grade through U9 about learning community choices and CT and other elective choices. Given these are 9th graders, Berkeley has 3,200 students. There's a lot of choice and a lot of information. I'm not going to tell you that every 9th grader makes the most informed choice, and that every single 9th grader has as much counseling as they should about what choices they're making. The nice thing is, besides learning community choice, their other choices aren't locked in. They can still, at junior year or even senior year, decide, oh, I really like to explore robotics, and there's still time and room. Some students have very proscribed academic days, given their learning community and other things. Say, if you're in International Baccalaureate program and you're going for the diploma, you have very little school day room for outside electives. But we are for a whole array of classes, 7th period and even EXT, extended school day. So Tuesday, Thursday evenings, EMT is on Tuesday evenings, Tuesday, Thursday evening, advanced robotics, Wednesday evening, mechatronics. Stagecraft happens outside of the school day and even on Saturdays. So students don't necessarily in Berkeley have to make the most dire choice like that they're going to be stuck with. They're exploring. Some school districts, once you're in and that's it.
I like that answer because it makes it make a little bit more sense, but also it leaves room for the students to explore, and that makes a lot of sense. So some pathways are very prescribed where others are not, but you're still in a pathway.
Yeah, and an AHA student like your daughter will finish a 3-year sequence up to studio art, and many AHA students still enroll in things like the Biotechnology Academy. Mm-hmm. So they sometimes are in more than one.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I do have a question. I'm going to see if I can phrase this. I wonder if, do you guys, you have so many students in this, so many more than I expected. Do you see any pattern in terms of students? I'm going to try to say this in a really values neutral way, but in terms of their sort of academic, traditional academic achievement, like how many, if we were to say how many kids are reading at grade level, is it kind of all over the map? Like you have some who are not that, and then you have some other who, in a slightly different situation, could end up in an, quote unquote Ivy League path.
It's exactly that. It's all over the map. It's across the map. We're super proud. Actually, I track demographic enrollment, not as much performance data as much as I do. Have we built pathways that broadly interest and serve our whole population? And we're highly representative. Things like our STEM pathways, we're working so hard to make sure we don't replicate the issues that you find in industry where there's underrepresentation of African-American students or Latinx students. And actually, we've closed that gap. I can't say we've closed that gap with girl students yet. So, we look at who's where, but as far as academic achievement, on track for A through G versus struggling in high school, we have the whole range. English learners, students with 504s, SED, you name it. So different pathways aren't as representative as other pathways. Computer science, no surprise, heavily male and probably skews much more towards the student that's super quote unquote college competitive, but across all of our pathways, we're really representative.
Let me add something to that if I can. Students may find themselves struggling with certain subjects. So if they take fire science in the 11th grade, they're taking a chemistry class. Now, they don't really get that because it's chemistry, because firefighting today is a chemical occupation, which the chief can discuss a little bit further. But they have to learn chemistry, and they learn it in a way that they like. I may have bored you with this story before, but I'll do it quickly. When I worked in San Francisco, where the school district did not value career tech education, one summer they told us at John O'Connell that they were giving us all the students who had failed geometry. So we had 60 students, all of whom had failed geometry at least once, some twice, and had to pass it to graduate. We paired geometry, a math teacher, with our carpentry teacher. And the kids would go to the geometry class and then walk across the courtyard to the carpentry shop. And they learned, you want to know how to build a truss? You have to understand angles. Kids were waiting outside the door in the morning for school to start. Unheard of in San Francisco. And secondly, every single kid passed geometry. But nobody paid attention except the teachers and us. We thought, wow, we've proved something. If you teach kids in a way that it makes sense to them, they will grasp the skills, even if they come in with the skill lacking. So if they're in law and social justice, they have to learn English language skills, because the essence is you have to write a coherent report. It can be the basis for legal action or for passing ordinances or for insurance claims. So learning English language skills in law and social justice is a core part of that class. We may not test them or know where they are when they come into the class, but they will learn the core academic skill in that class, and they will be proficient when they get out. Anyway, okay, I'm done.
That's great. No, I love that story.
I think the other just point, and Wynn can maybe expand on this if he has anything else, but there's plenty of kids that enter CTE and then do go on to either community college or four-year school. But it's like in our program, really good life skills, right? They're getting an EMT education and the state license certification when they turn 18. So I mean, it's good for pre-med, it's good for babysitting, being a parent, like just great life skills. So whether or not they return to the profession afterward or something related, just good skills to learn.
Plus they get a job. They can get a job. And it pays more than a barista. It's not great, but it's a useful, exciting, interesting job. And as David said, it opens the door to other careers. And that's the whole point, is to open a kid's mind, to show them there are choices and pathways that they can explore, they can go down.
Yeah, Vicky. Vicky, you're still on mute.
Sorry, looking at this different schedules of classes on the map that you sent, what an estimate of percentage maybe of classes are really only electives, but A through G possible electives versus replacing a more generic class like a chemistry or biology or math class, so that it's not just an elective that you can take, but you can take it in lieu of something else.
You're filling a requirement. So that's a really delicate line, because we don't really want to replace things of general ed as much as enrich and accentuate. But truth be told, like mechatronics, as you see on there, is EXT, meaning it's offered outside of the school day. That's a D science class. So if you're UC and you're applying to UC and you list that, you've either taken an extra science class, or you've filled your science requirement 1 year. Computer science, there's one of our computer science classes is a D, one is a what's math? E. So some of them can fill those classes. You're either loading up in that area, or you're taking that in lieu of another class. Biotech Academy, those students have extra science class junior and senior year. If they only take those, they're filling their science classes. Some of those students take the 2 biotech classes and other science classes. So it's a both and, I guess, if that makes sense. You can see it's a wide array of classes, though. And again, kids will get the whole gamut. Say, just use robotics as an example. Robotics touches on a lot of things. There's coding and programming. There's engineering and design through CAD, like computer-aided drafting. There's actual machining, working with tools and cutting and measuring and machines. But then there's a whole side of things. The robot actually has to do what you want it to do. So, R&D and testing, and it's super highly collaborative. And kids start with that, and sometimes a light bulb goes off and they're like, you know what I really liked the most? Working with the machines, working with tools and cutting, etc. And I've had kids who thought they were going to 4-year XYZ and decided, no, I really want to be in machining, and I'm going to go to Laney and be in this incredible machining pathway. All of those are great choices. And it's really about exposure and exploration and experience. Sorry, my voice is shot. We do have a clearly articulated post-secondary partner for every single pathway. If a student, I guess, Vicky, you had an earlier question about what kind of counseling do they get. We have an option post-secondary for every single pathway, but it is in no way expected that you go that direction. That's an option. So biotech is a great example. Those kids in junior and senior year, somewhere between junior and senior year, they do a really high value paid internship in the biotech field, many at Bayer, but all across our whole Berkeley and Oakland region, East Bay Mud, etc. Many of those kids will go off to 4-year schools immediately, but if they choose, we have 2 pathways. One is a biocert manufacturing through Laney, which is direct employment, and actually our local employers will help pay for them while they're in school because there are jobs immediately to be filled. And some of them go to Berkeley City College for more of a bio research, with the idea that they'll go on to a 4-year college after that, but with paid internships the entire 4 years, meaning 2 years of high school and then 2 years of post-secondary. So all of them are a little bit different and nuanced.
One thing I want to add, and this was from the get-go when I first came to the district. I said that we had to develop pathways in careers that had good wages, good benefits, and good pensions. No, the first one that came up, and I'm surprised nobody's mentioned it, was culinary. And just as an aside, I had a son who was a chef for 10 years. I know the industry well. And I said no, because those are dead end jobs that pay very low wages with no job security and no benefits. So the careers that we offer to kids through CTE, whether they go on to a 4-year college or do the 2-year and 2-year route, those careers are going to give them a way to earn a secure living. And that's critical. We don't want to dump kids out into a job market where they're living 4 to a room with no health care. Well, you know the problem. So that is a feature of our pathways. Anyway.
I have a quick question, if I may. I have younger kids, and I see in your CTA or CTE education, what is the Makers Camp for 5th to 9th graders?
We just completed year 2 of Maker Camp last summer, summer 21. We had 150 students, rising 7th through rising 9th, and they did a month long, so 4 full weeks of half-day camp. We were at King in the Makerspace and at Berkeley High School, depending on what grade level they were. And it really is, it's a camp. I mean, all the things of camp, snacks and games and fun, but all based around STEM exploration. Each grade level did different things. So some are doing game design, some are doing urban planning and design, robotics, sound engineering, depending on the grade. It's targeted for students from populations underrepresented in STEM. 100% free to our students. This last year, we went to 250 students, 250 of our rising 6th through rising 10th. Sorry about my voice. And embedded with those students were 40 Berkeley High School students, meaning near peers, who served as mentors. They were all students from our own CTE classes. So they were working in, say, a student had been in sound engineering with us. They were working with the students at Berkeley High School exploring sound engineering. And we hired 100% our own staff. So our own instructional specialists and our own teachers. It allowed middle school students to have early exploration, not only of some of the CTE things we're going to have, but really a fun, engaging thing to do in the summer. They were meeting students from all 3 middle schools. So even though we hosted it at King, we had an equal number, representation from Willard and Longfellow. Students really reported it was great to meet kids from other middle schools. They knew kids before they were going to Berkeley High, for example, from other schools. But really early exposure. We're trying to close the STEM opportunity gap. We do that in partnership with the Berkeley Public Schools Fund. So we're able to offer it for free because we've worked really hard to get philanthropic support for this. But if anyone knows, ask anybody, any parent of a kid who was in our summer camp the last 2 summers, and I think they will tell you, Vicky, you had a kid and she loved it, right? Yeah, I mean, I think it's as quality as any private camp I've seen. Again, we offer that free to BUSD students.
When Angelica had a question, it's in the chat.
Okay, so Angelica, that's actually incorrect. Was this might have been 21. I'm not sure if you're talking about 21, 22 or 22, 23.
I think I'm talking about, hi everyone, 22, 23, or it could have been 21, 20. I only have a 2nd grader. So it was just interesting that I was on that call. That statistics has stuck with me since then, just wanting, obviously with the 2nd grader considering, going public school or entire educational career, learning that, I said, oh my gosh, like what support would my student have?
Yeah.
In expectations to excel and go to college, if that's the route that we would pursue. So I'm listening to this and I'm seeing the engagement sounds much higher, especially when you're sharing that all of the courses are, in fact, it would meet those requirements to apply for college.
I can dispel it immediately. Actually, there might be a pathway, and I could see that at Berkeley High School, where some AP class of some sort But so CTE works really, really closely. It's actually a CTE initiative called Diversifying the STEM Career Pipeline. And in that, we created we joined or created a National Society of Black Engineers chapter at our high school. It's super active. I would invite you to come visit anytime you want to come and see it. We have a National Society of Black Engineers and a Hispanic Engineering Student Society, both at Berkeley High School. The last 3 presidents of NSBE, two years ago was at Harvard. Last year's at Worcester Technical Institute on a full ride scholarship for engineering. This very most recent president is at Stanford. I mean, we send kids, they're in all the AP classes. They're taking all of our STEM classes. They're doing quite well. I hate when I see a stat like that. I'm not saying that there isn't some AP path somewhere at Berkeley High School. I don't track that as closely as I do CTE. I would love to see where you got that information. We have students together in AP Physics, NSBE students that we cluster together in AP Physics to make sure that we're also dealing with things like stereotype thread and affinity grouping students, so that there isn't this feeling of isolation that so many Black kids can very legitimately say they feel in some AP classes. So at least from what CTE can control, we have our own AP classes like AP Computer Science Principles, have African-American students in that class. So there's classes like in English, AP Patterns of Black Lit, which have lots of African-American students. So it's terrible when I see a stat like that. I'm happy to be here to dispel that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And just to confirm, that was 2021 to 2022. I found the meeting invite. So
yeah, please send that to me if you don't mind, because I would love to see what that was. Oh, in math, I see someone said in math. That could be true. And again, I do more with computer science and other science, not math. That's terrible to see that if that's the case. Actually, that's not true either. AP Calc and AP Statistics both have African-American students in them every year.
I think that statistic might have also been the number of students who take the test, not necessarily the number of students who are enrolled in it. And so I was going to say something very similar to that. I'm often in meetings with Brea and Ruth Steele Brown in my other hat on P&O and SBAC and SSD, WASC. And this is amazing information. And a lot of the data that we look at these other committees talk about A through G requirements and graduation rates. And we don't really have a lot of data about what happens to kids after that. We've requested data about, okay, yes, we have this number of graduation, but then where do they go after that? And so I would highly encourage you, if at all possible, to connect with Brea and see if they could either start collecting some of this data to share, because why not celebrate this great stuff? And as you said, not every student is bound for a four-year college. Well, what do our other students do? How many of our, graduating students go into one of these programs? How many go to community colleges? How many go right into employment because of one of these experiences? And we don't have any of that data. And if we're merely looking at A through G requirements as our rate of success, like that's not super great. But if we have very different and multiple ways that a student's high school career can be successful, it would be great if the district had that data to celebrate and to look at when we're talking about metrics for what we're doing. So I would highly encourage that data to be disseminated or collected.
Yeah, there's a tool called College Tracker, and the district at least used to subscribe. I don't know where Brea is currently on that, where they can look at our students using their state student ID up to 6 years out from high school and see what most post-secondary institutions participate, so you can track students that way. It's much harder in the career pathway world. So when students leave us knowing, are they using what they learned in CTE in their career? The state doesn't have a good tool for that. They're working on something called, we have CalPads. All our classes are CalPad coded. They're working on a tool called CalPass Plus. I don't know how it's going to work exactly, but they've promised it for the last several years, that this will be a tool that will allow us to track our students, not just in post-secondary education, but in career. I've yet to see how that's going to work. And again, it's been promised by the state for multiple years, but there are some tools we can use. More than anything, what CTE Berkeley Unified needs to build is our own internal tool so that we do a better job of tracking our students. I do report some of that for our Perkins data for the federal government, but it's really hard for us to track our students when they leave us and they leave our Berkeley.net world.
Maybe, David, maybe you can, we seem to have better connections with our fire science EMT students. How do you do that? Oh, did he leave us?
I think it's probably because of the relationships they develop with people in our department. So
Oh, the mentorships.
they're connected. Yeah.
And for example, like Biotech Academy, because we work with biotech partners. So for like that pathway, we have very good statistics about where kids go, and we have years of that data. It's very pathway specific. If they're going to the Carpenters local 713, we have a written agreement with them so we can track those students. But if they're in law and social justice, most of those kids are going off to 4-year before they ever go into a career in law or law enforcement or whatever else they go. So we don't track that in the same way.
And was that called Cal Enroll, the other one that you mentioned?
Cal Pass Plus is what the state keeps promising. All course codes at high school are CalPAD coded. Don't ask me what that acronym stands for, but I have to organize them by pathway for completers. And that's how the state keeps track of our students and what courses that they're progressing through. CalPass Plus is supposed to be to track them after they leave high school. And College Tracker is the tool to track post-secondary enrollment.
And that includes community college and 4-year?
Yep, community college and 4-year, and even some other kinds of trade schools, et cetera. Not all of those participate, but many do.
Thank you.
Oh, and I just wanted to go back. I think that was Angelica that asked about her African-American students in AP. NSBE has been such a really amazing thing at Berkeley High School, and it's such a strong group. We actually, the last 2 years, have sent students to the national conference. Last year it was in Houston. And then this year they're going to be, I think it's in Atlanta in March. It's a really, really amazing way to build an affinity group of students who are cross CTE STEM pathways. They're not always all in the same pathway, but they know each other through NSBE, and they participate in a whole range of career exploration. It really is a true career, pre-career exploration organization.
Great. Any other last questions? I don't want to take your time, but I think this has been really, really interesting, and I'm hoping that we can continue, working together to get the word out and help you with your goals.
I think it would be wonderful if we could have you come and see some of our shops or our EMT class. I think it would be really helpful and interesting for some of your council members, and we would be delighted. We love to show them off, and you can see the kids in the class doing what they're excited about doing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thanks for the time tonight, and I'll say what I said in the beginning is, and I speak for Stephanie and Wynn. We're happy to come back to this group or to any other group or gathering where we can talk about the programs and how it's benefiting kids in the community. So thanks again for the time tonight and for what you're doing.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm happy to follow up with email with any questions you might have.
Yeah, we'll probably do that. Yeah, we'll try to figure out some other ways to keep the word out. This has been really impressive, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Bye, Chief.
Good night. See you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm reading Lindsay's chat here. Yeah, so maybe Angelica, maybe it is that question about who takes the test versus who's enrolled.
I don't know, they don't disaggregate who takes the test and who passes it by race or
Yeah.
ethnicity. It's
Yeah.
saying that 1,566 total exams were taken by 879 students, for a rate of 30%, 36% passing or something. I don't even understand it. I'm so sorry. But any who's it, what's it. I also remember Laura Babbitt freaking out about that statistic at a board meeting a couple of years ago. So I don't doubt your memory, Angelica,
Was it math?
even if it's a sad one. I think it was math.
You know
Yeah.
what? It might have been at a CSIS meeting too, now that I'm thinking about it, that was shared. Because we were looking at that specific data as CSIS meetings.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because I see that kind of info most clearly in the CSACE decks. The other ones, they really try and bury the information that would get people up, you know. Like, I don't mean to take up any time, but on the 18th, they did their LCAP data, and the story was, we're a success, rising stars, woo-woo. And the fact is that the gap between socioeconomic like boundaries grew from 57% to 60+% in almost every category. So, I mean, for sure, I'm so glad that we can bump the bright spots, but to say that there are bright spots, everywhere, we do have a problem and we do need to take care of it. And we can only do it without the rose-colored glasses on.
Yeah, those weird, those numbers are kind of weird, but they don't really add up to 100, do they?
How do we, I have a general question, like when we get these presentations, how do folks share this back with their schools? And this was
Yeah,
a lot.
I wanted to get into that. Thank you so much for asking that.
How do we, or how should we?
Both?
How do you guys, yeah. I mean, do you guys come and just get to participate this on your own and you're like the anointed few and then that's it? Or do you go like, hey, that was really cool, and I'm gonna send this on to other people?
So what I personally do, depending on what the information is and how easy or hard it is to digest versus if you have background in it or not to understand it, I sometimes share out the decks if it's pretty straightforward and you don't need like a lot of background or jargon to get it. Other times during our board meetings, I will give like a paragraph or two summary about what we covered, and then give people the opportunity to follow up with me. But that doesn't mean that the information gets widely spread throughout the whole school community. It's mostly just to our PTA board, although that is like 30 people sometimes, because we include like all of our committee chairs and, our affinity groups and things like that on our mailing list.
I would say that's what I was doing last year when I was council liaison, although no one's filled that position this year. So BAM doesn't have a current representative coming. This one in particular, I kept trying to think of what would be the messaging that we'd want to give to elementary school parents around this too. Like it feels super topical to middle and high school, but less so for parents of younger kids, I guess.
Yeah, I think for this, it would probably be like what I would do is like a paragraph summary of like, hey, this is really awesome. As your kids get older, find out more about this, and like kind of explain what it is, kind of as an alternative to traditional four-year college and opportunities for career, but, give it the positives that it is, because it is often seen in a negative light as well. So, that's I think what I'm planning on doing.
Yeah, I would think it's either negative or non-existent, right? Because you hear stories about how, they got rid of shops so that everyone can be on a computer or something like that, or they got rid of, but I'm just amazed at how many things they have and how the rates of participation. And and it seems like they're really thoughtful about how they're trying to do this well. So yeah, I guess just a heads up of what's available. And also the other thing too is just that it's also amazing that it's A to G. So that, you might be like, oh no, junior's going to go to college no matter what. But well, hey, instead of taking chemistry, take fire science. I mean, how cool is that? Can you imagine? I mean, everyone would go to chemistry. You get to burn things or whatever, learn about why fire works. I did that. I took a fire class in engineering. It was like one of the best classes I ever took.
Should we move on,
So,
folks?
yeah, but I'm sorry, but just kind of follow up really quickly because, and actually that was one of the items I had in my little ad hoc thing. Like, do people use, do you guys have access to some sort of community-wide or school-wide email list or Google group or anything like that? And is that a place that you can kind of throw things of, like summaries or links to meeting minutes and stuff like that too? Is that possible? No.
We have an e-tree and we have room parents, although I don't typically share this type of stuff out on those venues, I certainly can.
And I know BAM, it would have gone to the executive board, which again is a lot of, maybe 50 people. So it's not like it's a small subset. And maybe more than that, it might be 60 now. But we do have announcements that go out, but I wouldn't consider this an announcement.
Craig
Yeah,
one
just
has
wanted-
like 5 people, just FYI, like 5 people. That's it. No, the teachers quit. We don't have any teachers on.
It's just a PA.
It's
just a
just
parents'
a PA.
Yeah, I hate to say this. I think we do have, and we'll be having some more interesting speakers coming up. I think we do have a really great, nice content, and I think it would be really. It's a shame that we're not able to find ways to. And I'm not complaining like that. Like, because I used to have the same struggle, right? Like, supposedly some people in Washington where we go to school are here, and then I don't see I don't see anything from you. So I'm the one who's posting. Like, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and do it. But I would love for there to be an easier way more for us to be able to share all the stuff because we spend time doing this, and you guys are spending your time here. So it's kind of a bummer not to kind of valorize it by sharing it out. The more people see it, the more valuable it becomes.
Well, I was actually thinking maybe we could invite them back in April and I don't know for sure when students are picking their classes for fall, but instead of having it be something for this group, to either have it be in person somewhere or have it be something that we really advertise and push and say like, hey, we're going to have this program come and have your 8th grader or freshman or sophomore come, or you as their parent come and listen, and have it be something where it becomes a much more open meeting. I know anyone can come, but like I feel like it's a limited group that we send to, so maybe trying to make a really concerted push towards especially students in those years, and maybe even sending an information thing about it to the school counselors at the middle schools to say like, hey, there's going to be this, because I mean, I don't know about the other middle schools, but King's sending us stuff all the time about presentations they're doing, and I know they get some attendance at all of them.
When you say sending us, what do you mean by that? Like sending
I mean,
at BAM?
there was a thing about screenager screening, and then there was another, I mean, like they're constantly, not constantly, they're often offering different types of sort of parent-centered information nights.
I do the same thing. Like I might not send this out, but anything I see that's happening like Dias de la Muerto at Longfellow, the Harvest Festival at King, the Screenagers, that all went on the Malcolm X E-Tree, so that elementary parents were aware about it. Things that are events or speakers, I always share. It's less the summaries of data and presentations, because I don't always have the opportunity to provide context. And so it's kind of hard to share. But like if we could somehow, I mean, it's asking a lot of our presenters, but if they had like a 1-pager snapshot of key points or something that we could then redistribute, that would be great. Or if there's somebody on this committee that could create that, post presentation that we could then disseminate.
I I feel like especially this group must have some sort of easy flyer that they could put together. Like
Oh yeah,
those speakers, I mean, I'm sure they're going and talking at different things. This would just be an opportunity for parents that might
Yeah.
not be as readily available.
Or would it make sense to, when we send out minutes, to try to have 3 to 4, bullet points, highlights? That would be sufficient to forward on. Would that be useful? Someone came in, like, what's his name? I think it was, from VAPA, came and gave a talk about arts and, yeah, Pete Gillen.
Billion, something like that.
Yeah, Gillen, yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out ways to make it easy for us to disseminate this out so that people can, benefit from it somehow.
I think that it's like not only just this, like these pieces of information, it's also gaining traction in having more people come to these meetings, period. And so for that effect, I would go old school and I would make like either a half sheet or a quarter sheet flyer. And I would find a rep at each site that would be willing to put the flyers in the teachers' mailboxes, because that's the one thing the print shop doesn't do. They'll put it in stacks of 25, but not like 22 and 20 and 18, and so it takes like a good half hour to an hour for somebody to do that. But if we say, hey, at your school on this day, you will have a stack of flyers to put in teacher mailboxes. Can you find somebody to do that? And it's selling the PTA council as a unification effort for this,
Wait, but say more. But so teachers now, now the teachers are going to have a flyer. What are they going
right,
to
a
do?
backpack flyer, backpack news.
Backpack. Okay. For
Maybe,
elementary.
and maybe, so this is something I did learn from BAM, which is we rebranded our PTA general meetings as community gatherings and now have tons of people that show up. So maybe the rebranding that we need is something like PTA council presents, as opposed to come to a PTA council meeting.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
interesting.
Make it worth their while
Yeah.
to connect and to help
Okay.
kind of
And
the bigger issues, right? It's not going to be school site issues, it's the
right.
bigger stuff.
Okay, so it could be like topical. Like, for instance, someone has reached out to me who is the climate ed TSA. So presents a presentation on climate ed on the district, at the district.
And every school, I think, has some sort of greening team.
Mhm.
Maybe that would be an in to parents.
Right.
Right.
Okay. That's a great idea. So let's see. Then we have someone else. Oh, this is not as well. It's important. It's not as positive sounding, but is BASA or MASA the school safety people? They'd like to come and present. So would that be also, PTA Council presents an update on what's happening with school safety? Cool.
And we
That
could
would be
have
great.
that, is that the same as the group who's trying to do the school shooting safety stuff?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. The site hardening thing. Yeah. Huh, that's really interesting. That's a great idea. Then we could just basically try to have these, basically then this becomes a venue to try to line up topics. And then they get the presentation and then we kind of meet, we lingerers kind of meet to, I don't know, think of possible next steps or talk about sort of organizational issues around the council or going really to the council.
I would
Okay.
also add, I tend to share more negative things versus positive things, because when it's something I want parents to rally against, or we need improvement, I'll share that versus, we all have limited bandwidth. So when I'm like, oh, this was awesome, I might not go make the extra effort to share that out versus, oh, this was really bad. This is a problem. Parents, come help deal with this kind of thing. So, that for me, maybe being aware of that mindset and changing it would be a good thing.
Yes, I think the glass can be half full.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course we can do a lot of stuff on literacy as well. Cool.
So
Okay.
sometimes for these things, like I feel like we get a lot of group think and not necessarily like, I don't know how to say it in a nice way. But like when you do something like harden all the school sites, you lose something too, right? And so I wonder, I don't want to be like one of those reporters that is like, you know, so
Only presenting one
equal-sided.
side.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think
Like,
we need to invite the people who want to keep schools open to the school hardening meeting. Right? Like they should actually.
right, but I don't want to expose myself as a person who wants the school to open.
Oh.
Like, you know what I mean? Because like I have to work with these people. The one of them's this president of the SSC that I serve on. And I don't want to argue with him all the time over like what I see as hysteria not backed by data. I think that there's much more danger with gun control and kids coming to school with something in their backpack than there is for some stranger to come to an elementary school, you know? So, I mean, I just like it's hard to be the other voice in Berkeley where we, are so rah-rah sometimes.
Well, did the email about the guns on BHS campus go to everyone or just BHS students, parents?
Everyone.
Okay, because I was gonna say there were students with guns in their backpack. It wasn't someone
know.
from the outside, so having a
Right.
closed or open campus isn't gonna
Doesn't
solve
matter.
that. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if
That's, I
everyone
mean,
did that or
and
not.
that's like actually the common, that's the most common trajectory for
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Well,
Like
and
it's not,
what is
it's
the next?
very, very not often, not somebody who's a stranger.
But then it also becomes, do we want to be one of those schools that has
Metal detectors.
Because I don't.
I don't either.
I mean,
No.
that's being recorded. I don't.
The best thing is relationships, right? Positive and strong relationships. That's
Yeah.
how we do it. I was reading something like, it's lame, I know, on Facebook, but like a teacher who was like every week asked kids who they wanted to sit with and who their favorites were,
Yeah, I
and she
saw that.
tracked it and was like, okay, I'm looking for the kids who aren't named because they're lonely and sad, and I'm gonna fix it, or as much as I can, right?
Well, she'll
So,
seat them because
right,
it's
see,
a hidden ballot, so she'll.
right, a hidden in social imbalance, right?
But there's always people coming at it from the other side. I mean, this is the same issue of the people who are building the suicide barrier on the Golden Gate Bridge. Like,
Right.
yeah, you can build a suicide barrier on the Golden Gate Bridge, but how about we just take all that money, the billions of dollars, and fund really awesome
Mental health.
therapy so that people stop being suicidal. I mean, I know it won't hit everybody, but like, for goodness sakes, like, aren't we coming at like, yeah, we can catch them at their absolute worst moment, or we can make some changes that will actually like really benefit a lot of people's lives. I don't know. But the thing is that with things like that, it's not, the money pot isn't the same pot. The people who donate to the suicide barrier are not the same people who would donate to treating depression, sadly.
Exactly. And I don't know but they've made some strides. I heard Brent go on for about 15 minutes at the SSC meeting about how awesome he's doing and getting guarantees for fencing and cameras and, all kinds of things at all the schools to harden everything. And so that comes from facilities funds, which aren't, infinite. So what are we giving up? Are we going to have moldy schools again?
Or hopefully not the proposed remodeling that's supposed to be coming up at like 5 different schools.
We had
Right.
classrooms in the hallways for 2 weeks in the past month because it was over 100 degrees in the upstairs classrooms during the heat wave. And even though it was like 88 or 89 outside, in the classrooms, it was over 100 degrees. And the kids were in the hallway, in the cafeteria, outside in 89 degrees because that's cooler than their classroom. So yeah, there's bigger facility needs than a camera on the door. But yeah.
Okay. Not gonna solve all these. Um, I'm trying to see if we can get we're originally, so we had just have like maybe like 9 minutes left. I was hoping that we could talk a little bit about trying to get people focused on some of these working groups, right? I think there are a lot of people who are interested in parking. So I've been talking to a couple of people there from Mendez and maybe some other schools also interested. Jennifer and Mike Chang, they co-chair the facility subcommittee, and I think they're talking about parking a little bit there. Jennifer seems to know something about parking, so I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe you all talk to Jennifer and get involved there. The facilities thing, this is kind of an ongoing problem. I know that Mendez is really concerned about how the laydown space will be and how the construction will be done in such a way that will have a lot of impact on students. And again, I'm wondering if there's a critical mass of people who want to get interested in facilities and making sure that I'm not exactly sure how we can solve the problem. I mean, supposedly he has these community dialogues, but people find them a little bit dissatisfying. I think they're not.
Our community dialogue was on the same night. Oh, crap. Sorry. Our community dialogue was literally on the same night as another school event that caught like a back to, the end of the school year, like open house, like at the same time.
Yeah.
Who's going to the facilities meeting when you could go see your kids work? I mean,
right. Yeah. So it's kind of tricky. I don't know what's a good way of dealing with that. And sort of related to that, I think that people have expressed some interest in trying to see if we could write in a gender non-specific, what's it called, all gender bathrooms, maybe into the design specs somehow. So we're wondering if there's some sort of
that was from one of my teachers. So that wasn't even from parents. So on the T side of things, or PTA council, that came from one of my teachers who said, she's on the welcoming families team for our school. And she's like, I'm floored that all schools don't have rainbow families, and that there are some schools that aren't having conversations about gender neutral bathrooms.
Yeah.
And why can't we work this into it is a new state law. I did not know that.
Okay. So did it make it to the DSA, the Division of the State Architect? Because that's like that's like everything. Like anything you want to do, anything you want to take a poop, you literally have to go through the DSA. So I mean, yeah, is that part of it? Because if that's a spec, then there's no debate.
If they don't have their plans in yet, then they're going to be liable to withhold to the state law. So even elementary school must have at least one.
But I think that I can count the staff bathroom as the one, which is what a lot of schools are doing.
This one, the law says a student bathroom, but I'm sure they could interpret it that way.
The teacher bathrooms are locked, at least at our school.
Yeah,
so I don't know how students can get in there.
I'm not quite sure how that works, but I'm fairly sure that is what the gender neutral bathroom is at BAM. And it might also be at King, actually.
We have at Malcolm X gender neutral bathrooms separate from the staff bathrooms. So because the staff bathrooms are locked, but the gender neutral ones are not.
Well, and so the teacher that I was talking with, like, so if we were going to have a more broad than just hardening schools talk about facilities, like that would be again, her whole thing was like, I don't want to just have this talk about our school. Like, I think it shouldn't just be that we're trying to support our 400 students here, because what does that do for kids at other schools in our district? Like, we should be trying to do this across the board. And that's why she thought council was the place to put it.
So, okay. So if we think about how to group these topics in, this sounds like a facilities type of group, and whether or not is there design specifications that's in place, and to what extent all the different capital projects are actually following that specification. So that's one question. And then then the other one that I've heard of, which I would group also under facilities, but it's a different flavor, which is making sure that the way in which they actually execute the project is conducive to instruction, noise, and the space, and what kinds of portable bathrooms are being used. I mean, the stuff should be all kind of figured out, but apparently it's not. And the community needs to be really well engaged, and that's not happening. So that's more of like a process question. Like, how do we make sure that this is happening well at the various sites that are undergoing these capital improvements? Whereas the other one is more of a design specification to make sure that, they're slightly different. They're kind of broadly under the same rubric, but I'm just kind of thinking of the different business processes, so to speak, within the district that need to be somehow addressed.
Well, and also in regards to the bathroom, at the last school board meeting, there were students speaking on behalf of their teachers who don't have access to bathrooms at Berkeley's High C building, stating that they have to walk like 3 buildings over or something during the 6-minute passing period in order to use a bathroom. So that was part of public comment and advocating for their teachers to actually have access to bathrooms in certain buildings.
Oh, teachers are not allowed to use the student bathrooms?
I don't know. I'm not really sure what it was. It was just what the student was saying. So just passing on what I heard at the school. Oh, okay. Yeah, Lindsay says they cannot. So I guess teachers
Well,
are
I can
not
imagine
allowed
that
to
in
use.
elementary school. So,
Yeah.
huh.
Berkeley High too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess I'm
that's
not
weird.
surprised.
No, it's gross. You don't want like a multi-stall thing going with people's stuff out. No, thank you.
Do we have a working committee under facilities? I think that's a question, right?
No, there's a lot of interest in it. I'm trying to find some bodies to
Well,
kind of put together.
we do have the turf versus grass, which is
Right,
a
there's that too,
facilities
right.
issue, and we do have the school heart. I mean, we have things that fall under the umbrella.
Yeah, building and grounds, that's really what it is, right? Yeah.
Would it be possible to have the folks that are doing the renovations or somebody from facilities at BUSD come and talk to us and get the groups all here? Who have these different I mean, and again, if you think about it from a financial perspective, like maybe not everything can happen. So we need to think, like, we don't need to think about priorities, but priorities need to be.
No, are you talking about the portfolio projects and their timing and so on?
Well, so the question I got from the teacher was specifically like, can we add gender neutral bathrooms to the current proposal of scope of work that's being done with these renovations, right? But if you think about the renovations plus the spending money on school hardening, right? Like there's competing financial strains there. Like, yeah, maybe they can get rolled into the same construction and be cheaper. I don't know. I'm not a construction person.
So
but
presumably there's something called the CBOC, which is the Construction Bond Oversight Committee, and that supposedly oversees, and it seems like at a somewhat high level, sort of the portfolio of capital projects under this particular bond, Measure G, I guess. And so and that's required by law to kind of oversee that. It's kind of a small group, and it's not it's somewhat transparent, but I don't know really how many decisions get made there, and what I think there might be room for public comment. It's run by John Calise. This might have been the meeting that Cielo used to go to. I'm not exactly sure. There's that, and then there's also the facilities subcommittee, which I mentioned earlier, and that's the one that's co-chaired by Mike and Jennifer, and that's the subcommittee of the board. And so these are the 2 venues I know of that have an actual construction related sort of thing going on. But and then in addition to that, John Calise will host these community outreach meetings, right? As we talked about earlier, for the various school sites that are undergoing some sort of construction. So I think those are the structures that are in place, and I'm not too sure exactly how we could bring all the facilities folks' interests that we've been talking about here to kind of influence any of those somehow. but it would be good to somehow do something about that. I'm not too sure how.
Those facility meetings are rough.
I haven't been recently.
Also,
It's like, there's really not a whole lot of opportunity for people to feel like they've been heard, and
Yeah,
a lot of reasons why
this can't
our
happen. This
opinion
can't
doesn't
happen.
matter,
Yeah,
and never a can-do attitude about it until like crap hits the fan. Think of the BHS garage, you know?
yeah,
that that only got like, oh, maybe we can work with the city, it once like all the bike walk Berkeley people like went whole hog on it and started doing it 2x2 meetings and this and that. So it's like there's a playbook, but it doesn't include the facilities team. The playbook bypasses facilities and goes to council members, the 2x2 committee, which is BUSD and council members, and et cetera, et cetera.
yeah. I'll have to figure this out. Okay. Well, it's 9 o'clock, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Any last parting shots? I think
What
next.
was your check-in on forwarding emails? Is that you checking if we're okay with you forwarding all those emails, or was it something different?
No, it was the thing that we talked about earlier. Yeah, that was
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Maybe I can just follow up on email. There was the outdoor ed thing. I think there's a lot of interest in trying to see if we can do something with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out a note to see if are there folks who might be willing to connect us with the teachers who run it, and then I can try to connect it with the Mendez people, and then they can see if they can get that critical mass of maybe some teachers there to figure out, oh, it's really not that hard. It's really easy to do, and then hopefully we can stand up a program at Mendez. Okay.
I wanted to thank the people who filled out the little spreadsheet about the arts. I think maybe 4
Yes.
schools so far. And maybe we'll have that done for our next meeting and we can take a look at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, Rita, do you know someone named Kristen Strangle? Is that your teacher? Or because you mentioned the thing about rainbow families at all the different schools. So I got an email from someone named Kristen Strangle who's trying to do this as well, saying that why isn't there rainbow families everywhere? Can you connect me to your rainbow families? And I forwarded her. At the time we didn't have our new leaders. Our leaders from last year graduated. So once I got those people and our welcoming schools person, I forward that information to her. Do you want me to send you that email?
Yeah, and I can connect it. It's Miss Palmer at
Okay.
our school, so I can forward it to her.
Okay.
That'd probably be great.
Yeah.
There's a new welcoming schools law too, BT dubs.
Okay, great. Can we do
I'll paste it into the
I'm
chat.
so glad we have a legislative analyst here on this on the team. Can we get an email to pull together all of the Rainbow Families folks as well? I want to do the same thing. If there are not Rainbow Families groups already pre-existing, I want to see if we can catalyze them as well. Get them stood up.
Hey, Tsung, I had one more thing.
Yes.
Which is I just wanted to talk about the after school enrichment meeting,
Yeah.
the collaborative.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, how'd that survey go over?
I mean, so we didn't, we didn't get into it because, Christy had kind of an agenda that she wanted to cover in that meeting, which was to go over the results of the, the results of the summer program, which was good. But I mean, I think that we need some more consistent parent representation. And I no longer have a kid in elementary, so I don't feel like I kind of want to roll off. I know Vicky, you were there. I think that was helpful. I think we do, we need kind of a consistent point person. And I think that it's kind of, Christy put together this calendar of which topics we would be covering in which meetings. That, it's not crazy, but I don't know that it's really, that it fits us super well. So I don't know that we want to solve it here. I'm just wondering whether, maybe push a little bit harder to get parent volunteers to be, consistent partners with the district over time. I don't know, Vicky, what did you think?
I went to the meeting expecting something very different than what happened at the meeting, which was fine. I think that it's difficult to have the same committee discuss PTA after school versus Bears and Learns.
Right.
And that's the challenge. And yes, I agree, more parents being there would be useful. I feel like the district has an agenda and their mindset a little bit about things and are like wanting our input or maybe our help to, and maybe our feedback, but they are coming from a place of this is what we already think versus being completely collaborative. So yeah. I think for me personally, I would be too combative in that meeting just because of my long history with dealing with this subject. So I wouldn't be the right fit, although I could pop in every now and then. But I hear you, not being at an elementary, how having a younger parent rep would also be good. Although what is interesting is at middle school, if you want to participate in any sport, you have to sign up as a Learns student, and it's very different how they do it there versus at the elementary sites. So
But that's
there
because
could
the age requirements, right? They don't have to deal with
right.
the same.
Yeah.
But it's a very different, it's a very different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, I just think like the middle school is a completely different ball game, right? And I think that to some degree, the focus from my perspective of that working group was always elementary, right? But there are many different threads, right? There's the Bears Learns integration, there's the how do we mesh this better with the PTA after school enrichment classes? How do we get more enrichment in the existing Learns program?
How do we get more learn space at all versus
Right.
having to use outside
Right.
after school programs? Yeah.
I mean, I think at our school anyway, PTA enrichment folks are saying, please take over doing enrichment at Learns so that we don't have to, because this has become untenable.
Yep.
And yet there's not enough space at Learns by any stretch.
Right. So the idea of them being able to successfully take it over in a way that they could include students that are there only 3 hours a week versus the 20 hours or so that would be full time, it doesn't seem realistic. And I think that then further separates access versus non-access.
So again, we're not going to solve this problem here.
Yeah.
Right. But I do think that like the parents coming into that meeting, they're not aligned, right? Because we all represent different, but on their side, they all report into Christy. So they're all on the same page. And so I think that I don't have an especially strong point of view as to what issues get covered. Let's just pick some of the problems and solve some of them. But like we as a parent community should try and figure out what we want to do, and then go back to Christy and say, hey, Christy, I know you had provided this laddering of topics for this year, like with each one topic for each month, but we want to do something different. I get it. That makes sense. That's your world. Right. And that's great. But what we're interested in is we're really